that you say he's getting every day? Is he getting anything from any of these officials about how the rating agencies?
You know, that would not be something that I would brief on from here, because the obviously issues that have to do with market sensitivities are not ones that I would address here. Roberta.
Last week, the president said, in a worst-case scenario, there are things that we'll do. And what if Thursday comes and there's no deal? Has the White House started implementing any of those contingency plans already ahead of, because we're so close?
Well, I would not go further than what the President or the Treasury Secretary have said about that, and I would refer you to Treasury. The Treasury Secretary, Jack Lew, testified, as you know, last week, where broadly this issue was discussed. But we are obviously focused on working with members of Congress, leaders in Congress, on an effort to do what we've said was essential all along, which was open the government and make sure that the United States pays its bills by extending the debt ceiling, and doing that in a way that we don't simply put us on a trajectory to recreate this crisis again in a few weeks. So we're encouraged by the progress that we've seen in the Senate. But we're far from a deal at this point, and so we hope that progress continues.
What is there about the Senate deal, though, that doesn't recreate the crisis in a few months down the road? What is there in it that doesn't mean we're going to be doing this all again in the year?
There's not a bill for me to analyze for you right now. What I would
the shape of the pending.
Look, I think that every participant in this exercise would hopefully understand that it should not be repeated. Not in a few weeks and not in a few months, and when it comes to the fundamental responsibility of Congress to ensure that the United States does not default, not ever. That's certainly the President's view. That is why he has been so insistent that we cannot engage in a process here that then becomes normalized, where a minority in Congress, a faction of one party in one House, can threaten the full faith and credit of the United States if it does not get what it could not get through the normal legislative process or through elections. So, those are the stakes when it comes to the essential responsibility of Congress to ensure that the Department of Treasury can pay our bills.
There do seem to be, though, some strings attached in the deal as it appears to be sort of coalescing or developing. What does the White House make of those strings?
Again, I'm not going to analyze details of a bill that we haven't seen yet and that has not emerged yet. Yeah.
Jay, it seems like the key parts, at least, of the Senate bill, the reinsurance, the income verification. President Obama said, quote, "Nobody gets to threaten the full faith and credit of the United States just to extract political concessions." But if you're open to that, as presumably the White House is, because they're talking to Senate Democrats, isn't that concessions?
Again, I think what we have seen in the process thus far that Senator Reid has engaged in is a proposal that would reopen the government and remove the threat of a first-ever U.S. default by raising the debt ceiling. We don't need any more self-inflicted wounds from Congress. The economy is already paying a price, as outside analysts have noted. There is already a cost to the economy and therefore to growth and jobs from this behavior. And it's important, as I think so many Americans believe, that it stop, that Congress simply fulfill its basic responsibilities to open the government, to fund it at, again, levels that were set by Republicans, so that we can get about the business of negotiating in good faith over longer-term budget proposals. I'm not going to.
But there are provisions on. You are talking about the short-term increase in the debt ceiling in the CR. If you're not going to talk about the Obamacare provisions, which are also on the table, I mean, you're talking about the short-term debt ceiling and CR provisions. I mean, even if these are sort of small fry gives on Obamacare, doesn't it violate the principle that the president set out there that he will not negotiate on Obamacare?
Again, until we have a proposal that has emerged from these negotiations in the Senate, I'm not going to analyze it with you piece by piece. What I can say is we've been encouraged by the progress, and we believe, and the President believes, it's very important that when it comes to the debt ceiling that we not do what a previous effort in the House would have done, which was try to create a scenario where budget negotiations and the renewal of government funding are once again tied directly to the essential responsibility of Congress to pay our bills, and right before the holidays, which would be a terrible outcome to this process, as every business owner will tell you, and I think many of them have told you, and many of them have told their representatives in Congress.
So does he hold firm to that assertion that he will not negotiate when it comes to Obamacare on the full faith and credit of the U.S. or on the government being shut down?
Yes, he has made clear two things, Brianna, as you know. He is willing, within the context of broader budget negotiations, within the context of serious-minded and earnest discussions about how to improve the Affordable Care Act, to look at any proposal that might do that, going to Obamacare. And that's true on broader budget issues. But with some of the ideas that we've seen this morning, when it comes to sort of demanding ransom to try to rally Tea Party members in exchange for opening the government or raising the debt ceiling, that's not acceptable.
From New York.
I ask unanimous consent the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to a period of morning business with senators permitted to speak for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I understand that H.J. Res. 80 has been received from the House and is at the desk.
The clerk will read the title of the resolution for the first time.
H.J. Res. 80, making continuing appropriations for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Bureau of Indian Education, and the Indian Health Service for fiscal year 2014 and for other purposes.
I would ask for its second reading and object to my own request.
Objection having been heard, the resolution will be read for a second time on the next legislative day.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that when the Senate completes its business today, it adjourn until 12 noon on Wednesday, October 16, 2013, and that following the prayer and the pledge, the morning hour be deemed expired, the journal of proceedings be approved to date, and the time for the two leaders be reserved for their use later in the day, and that following any leader remarks, senators be permitted to speak for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection.
If there's no further business to come before the Senate, I ask that it adjourn under the previous order.
Senate stands adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow.
Senators today continued debating the government shutdown and a potential default on the national debt. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid and Minority Leader Mitch McConnell have resumed their negotiations to reopen the government and extend the borrowing authority. This happened after a House proposal stalled this afternoon. As always, you can see live coverage of the Senate here on C-SPAN 2.